Welcome back. We're here for part 2 of the solderless bead video, and this part of the video we're getting down to the finish line. We're gonna see who wins the race. No, you know. So sorry, someone came in and took over my mind for a minute. This is just one idea of what you can do for the center, which I've done in the other beads. The other beads I've used double layers of the silver. This is two probably 24 gauge pieces of discs of sterling silver. You can use, like I did here, this is an 18 gauge piece of brass. You could put fabric in between here. You could put neoprene. You could do a bunch of stuff. You could even put a rock in here. Whatever you want to put in here, but I'm going to show you how to do the metal part, making a disc. Now you can buy, as we talked about, pre-cut discs. They also make washers. The deal is you want the washer hole, if you're going to buy pre-mades, to be the exact same size as the diameter of the tubing you're using. So I generally stick with these two sizes here, and I'll tell you what they are. If I can turn this on. It's very hard to do turning on this machine. Okay, this is, according to these, 1.74 millimeters, and this is 2.53. This is what you're concerned with, you know, how thick a cord are you stringing on. That's going to be the determinant on what size tubing you are going to use on this. So if you're going to buy pre-drilled discs, make sure that it fits like this, if I can get it in here, nicely on here. You know, it can move, but you don't want a lot of gap in here. If you use a regular washer that's, you know, like 75-100% more hole than this is, the centerpiece is going to slide back and forth in your bead, remember, because there's no solder holding it together. This is a pressure hold, so you want the hole to fit pretty tightly on the tubing. If you're not going to do that, if you're not going to buy pre-mades, which is probably going to be difficult to find, where's that metal? You can go back to the same method that we used before. If you were going to saw out the disc, you know, make your little divot, put your dividers in to the size you want, and then spin it and then saw it out. I was going to show you how, I'll just do that in a minute, show you how I round the edges out on a disc that I've sawn out, because it's really hard to do a perfect sawing on a circle. Unless you're perfect. I want to meet you. Anyway, what else was I going to say about this? Oh my god, brain fart. Something about something. I'll get back to you in a second when I figure it out. I immediately remembered it as soon as Lisa turned the camera off. What you want to do is make this disc at least 1 millimeter diameter larger than your finished bead end here. Your hemisphere, half hemisphere. I would make it even a little bigger, because the rolling and if you know, if you have to cut these discs out, the cleanup will take off too much and it'll be too close. You want it to stick out just a, you know, about a ½ millimeter all the way around. So do a millimeter, half, 2 millimeters, depending on your sewing skills. That's what I would recommend on this. You can try and find pre-cut discs that work. Like this one's could almost work. It's a little, well, you can't see it. That actually would probably work. Sometimes I have a hard time finding a perfect match on my disc cutter or on purchased ones, because, you know, there's no guarantee exactly what size your bead's going to come out, because it depends on how hard you're hammering it, what gauge you're using, and all that. This book, which, oh my god, there's everything on the floor. Whew. Nancy M. Howland did this book, and it's got all kinds of technical details. Talks about making solder with beads. I think it's out of print. I have a link to a PDF of this online. It's a really intense book as far as she's got charts and forms and much more scientific than my by the seat of my pants method. So I highly recommend that book. It'll really teach a lot about doing this. So anyway, discs, you know, whatever you want to use. Like I said, you could use leather, cut leather. You don't even have to have discs. You know, you could just shred old jeans and whatever you want to do. So I'm going to move on. I've drilled a hole in the center of this that matches my tubing, which is what you want. You also drill holes on the end of your bead that matches your tubing. So you're going to match your drill bit up to the size of the tubing. This is a little loose for my liking, but the tighter the fit, the better. Less movement makes it a lot easier to work with. So that's that on that part, and then we're going to start, let's see, what do we have to do next? Next we have to figure out what we're going to do for the ends. You can just leave this like this, or you can also take bead caps or make smaller discs, maybe out of patterned metal, you know, roller printed or etched or something, and then make these little caps, because you're hardly going to hammer them at all, so the pattern will stay. So you would do that all the same way, finding the center, cutting or punching or whatever you're doing. So we'll go on to that as soon as I clear off this stuff that's in my way. Okay. I almost forgot to tell you how I round a disc that I've sawn by hand, but I remembered. See? Senile, but not that bad. There's two ways. The vice grips are nice because I don't have to file my fingers off. One way is to do the roll, and then you can switch to this way and this part and turn it over and this part. The other way, if I had my bench pin here, I would put it in the V and roll the file around the edges like this. And what you can do to check on your round is to get a circle template and try to line it up as best you can. This is actually a little small for this, but sometimes when you're cutting circles, you gotta say, oh well, I'll have to use this for another project. It's just not the right size. But I would use if I could find my bigger circles, I would show you. So now you can see this point here is a little too high. My stomach is growling. Apologize. So the lines here will help you to visualize what areas you need to hit with the file. So that's a little tip on how to do that. And back to our beads. Oh my! Just fell on the floor. I have to go get it. So a nice and a pretty way to end your bead is to use a pre-made bead cap too. These are from Vintage Jewelry Supplies. There's tons of them. And you can also take pieces that are flat and turn them into bead caps. You just have to make sure that they have that same size tubing hole on the end. This one does not, which I will have to drill it out, but center's already marked for you, so it's like totally cake. So what you want to do is dome this too, but you don't want to dome it too much because you'll take all the pattern away. So we're going to do a one-hit wonder here, maybe two. And what we want to do is find out the last size that this fit into was my 14, and I'm using a 13.6 punch because it fits tight. So I want this dome to match this dome. So I'm gonna have to go bigger first. Make this, that's crazy big. Just gonna, that is a 26, so I want about 20 something. Not, no, not winning any prizes here. Here, 27. That's all I could find. So, 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to go to the next one. I'm just going to do a little bit this is going to be my final. So, okay, I got a 21, try an 18. And I'm not hitting as hard as I did with the metal, the original metal. So I've dapped both sides, both bead caps for the ends. If they come pre-dapped, pre-domed, you can adjust them to the size you need with your, just using a different size die and punch. So now I'm using these 2 discs because these are a little bigger. Don't forget when you're using your discs, I don't know, these holes are kind of big in here. I'll just fake it for now. After you make your discs, if you're sawing them out or stamping them, you need to finish your edges to, you can keep them rough if you want, or you can take them to a high polish. But don't forget to also finish the edge that's going to show sticking out of the bead. So this tubing I'm using is very thin. And if you watch the end of the video, you'll have a little surprise that relates to this. So I've come up with an idea. The tubing has bent before. And so what I'm going to do is work hard in the tubing a little bit and just use a piece of wood to roll it without crushing it. I'm not, doing it so hard that I'm smashing the tube. Also, what I'm going to do is run a little wire, copper wire up in there. This has a little whoopee on the end of it. Over here. And I'm going to work hard and straighten this up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert this wire into the tube so that it helps provide some rigidity so that the tubing doesn't bend. And then hopefully, with any luck, after the bead is riveted together, I'll just take another piece of the wire and push out that center piece. So that's what I'm going to do now for the first time. So what we need to do now is determine the length of our tubing. And I just discovered this little trick, because I just sometimes get inspired by Lisa, I think. So I'm going to use my calipers, and I'm going to squish down my bead, theoretically. Oh my God. This has been the weirdest day. I swear to everything that can go wrong has gone wrong. Okay, so I'm going to squish down my bead, and I'm going to measure it, and I'm going to round that up to 17 millimeters, right? Now I want 1.5 millimeters on each end. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to do 17 plus 1.5, and 1.5, so I have 20 millimeters. So to double check this, I left the bead on and I eyeballed it, and then I measured it afterwards, and it was 20. So it works. So I'm going to cut a 20 millimeter length of tubing for this bead. And you don't have to watch me prep for that. So I have this little tube riveting set. I will put the link to the maker on my site. It has all 4 steps in the tube riveting process. But if you don't have that, you can use the plumb bob that you can get at the hardware store or Harbor Freight, and or a nail set would work. So I'm going to clamp this in here, and I'm going to flare one end. I'm going to use a leather mallet, not steel, because the steel will mar this end. So I'm going to pre-flare one side. I'm spinning it when I do this because I don't want to bend the tubing in one direction over another. And you basically just want enough of a flare, I don't know if you can see that, to keep the bead and the cap from falling off on the end. So let's see if that works. Okay, see, we've got it on there. So we're groovy and far out at this point. Now I already dropped this on the floor and lost the 2 center discs. I only have 1, so I'm going to go back to this brass one. I have about 27 discs under things in my studio. It's got a little flared from the hamming. Oh, that really doesn't feel good. I might have to drill this open a little bit, because I just kind of did things a little weird today. Okay. should fit now. If not, I'm throwing this all out. Nobody gets to see the video. I'll have a hissy fit. Alright, got that on. So I have the 20 millimeter silver tubing, and I lined it with a approximately 16 millimeter piece of copper wire that fit telescopically into it. I've already flared one end, and now I've got my plumb bob on the top, and I'm going to flare the top of this up here, which I don't understand why it's, oh, there it is. Stay down. Trying to make it so you can see what's going on here. Trying to hit center so that I flare evenly. Make sure that everything is lined up. Oh, my wire fell out. That's alright. I want to make sure that my ends are flared enough to keep this in place. So now we're going to move to the next part, which is going to the little less flared. If you don't have this graduated set, you can try to find, I mean, the plumb bob pretty much works because it just moves down farther on here. They also make little, what are they called? Eyelet punches that work pretty good for making tube rivets too. I think I talk about some of these things in my video on riveting. Okay, so now I'm putting the flare end back down. I'm going to bring my, this flips sides, by the way. So I'm trying to keep this left perpendicular, up and down, vertical. I'm going to turn it. We're going to just slowly start spreading the metal. Trying to keep everything lined up. Hopefully, now that I've lost my wire, I hope my tubing isn't bending on me. So now we're getting, see, it's all starting to, I can squish it and get it into position at this point. I don't want to have it all the way hammered down yet. You can see the flare is still sticking out, but it's made it tight enough here to hold the bead together enough for you to futz with it. Official jewelry making term. Okay, so I'm gonna get ready for the finale. I'm gonna switch out to my last, not last, but almost last. Put that lower. It really helps balancing act if you put them low, because if they're up here, then you've got to hold like this, and it's scary enough as it is the way I'm doing it. Okay, so I've got my flare on the end. What am I gonna use? I'll use the second one. Make sure it's kind of level here. I turn my bead so I try to hit evenly. And I'm going to rotate. You're almost done. Make sure, one last look here. Make sure everybody's lined up. We're almost at the moment when we notify the queen that her jewelry is ready. Okay, so I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to grab a hammer with a ball peen on the end of it. So now I'm going to, the flare is pretty spread out. I'm going to flatten it down. I'm using a ball peen. Tapping around the edges of it. Go in with a flat surface. Kind of move the hammerhead around. Check this side. Hopefully it's not too messed up. I'm going to tap it down a little bit with the peeny side. And then go in with just the flat hammer. And notice I'm not pounding this the whole time. I've been trying to keep it pretty, what do you call it, non-pounding, because that'll definitely bend your tubing in there. If your tubing bends, there's a couple things you could do. One is you can just quit and go home. barring that, what you can do is saw off the part of the tubing that's sticking out and try to take the bead off and start again. You can try using that wire method that I used for half a minute until it fell out. Or you can drill a little bigger holes and go to a more robust tubing, like the next size up, or get a thicker walled tubing, or you can just keep trying until you get it. Either way, this worked. You know, it was not fun, as you'll see in our blooper reel. So at this point, you know, if you were going to fit, there's not a lot of surface area showing on here, so I'm not concerned about finishing. I could go in here with bristle discs and clean up anything. I would worry about taking off the plating on here with that though. So you can tumble these if you really want a shiny finish. I don't like shiny, I like matte, so I'm just going to leave this as is and throw it in some liver of sulfur and you know, get it to do this kind of trick where we've got our recessed areas that are darker and things like that. If you want, you can also drill holes in these. Did I get rid of that? So before, you can drill holes in the disc before you dome them. Just be prepared that the holes will stretch out in interesting ways. So, but that's another way to do beads. I think I have one over here. Yeah. This one here. So here's another one bead for my necklace. Pretty soon the queen's gonna get her jewelry. Of course this doesn't fit in here. Anyway, I'm not gonna mess with it. This wire's not straight. It's just not behaving properly. I want to thank you for coming, and this is a lot of work, and I hope you enjoyed it. And now you too can have fabulous necklaces, and I hope to see them everywhere. So, thanks for coming. This is Nancy L.T. Hamilton saying namaste. It's sticking out of the top. So I'm going to take this off and we're going to start that again. It's, geez, I wrote it down somewhere. And, oh God, Lisa. I can't, how did it get off if I can't get it back on? So now I got to straighten this out. What the hell? Today's been one of those odd and wondrous days. Like, I can't find the ruler now. So hold on a minute, I'll be back. And I need to set, oh my God, this is the weirdest day. I'm not ready again, I'll be right back. Does Nancy know what she's doing? No, not a clue. Help me, sir, she said. For the hunter shoots me dead. Senile. I'm thinking of changing my name from the Not So Lazy Jeweler to the Senile Jeweler.